Clara Whitmore pressed her back against the cafe's brick wall, heart hammering like a caged bird. 27 years old, and she was hiding like a teenager again. Through the window she saw him. Ethan. Her ex-fiancé sat at their old table, fingers intertwined with a blonde woman Clara had never seen before. The same table where he'd promised her forever just 6 months ago. Her breath caught in her throat. The wedding dress still hung in her closet, tags attached, dreams shattered like glass on concrete. Not today, she whispered, but Ethan's laugh, that familiar, cruel laugh, cut through the glass like a knife. The blonde leaned closer to him and Clara's stomach twisted into knots. She needed to leave. No. But Ethan stood up, scanning the street through the window. His eyes were hunting, predatory. Clara knew that look. He'd seen her. Panic flooded her veins like ice water. A tall man in a charcoal suit walked past, checking his phone. Without thinking, Clara grabbed his arm and pulled him into a hug. "Please," she whispered against his chest. "Just pretend you know me." The stranger froze. His body was warm, solid, real. For a moment, Clara forgot why she was hiding. His arms slowly wrapped around her, protective and gentle. "It's okay," he said quietly. His voice was deep, weathered by pain she couldn't understand yet. Clara risked a glance toward the cafe. Ethan stood frozen at the window, his face twisted with something between shock and rage. But it wasn't her ex-fiancé's expression that made Clara's blood run cold. It was the way the stranger's entire body had gone rigid the moment he saw Ethan's face. What connection did this mysterious stranger have to her past? And why did Ethan look like he'd seen a ghost? 3 months earlier, Clara had believed in fairy tales. She'd stood in the bridal shop, white satin pooling around her feet, while her mother cried happy tears. "You found your prince?" her mother had whispered. "Prince? What a joke." 2 weeks before their wedding, Clara came home early from teaching her 3rd grade class. She'd wanted to surprise Ethan with his favorite dinner. Instead, she found him in their bed with Meredith, her maid of honor. "Clara, wait." Ethan had started, but Clara was already running. The engagement ring felt like fire on her finger as she yanked it off and threw it at the wall. Now, standing in her tiny apartment, Clara stared at the unpaid bills scattered across her kitchen table. Student loans. Her mother's nursing home fees. The wedding venue deposit she'd never get back. Teaching barely covered rent. Her mother needed specialized care after the stroke, and Clara was drowning in debt while Ethan lived in his trust fund bubble. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Saw you with your new friend today. Interesting choice, Clara. Very interesting." Clara's hands shook as she read it twice. How did Ethan get her new number? But more disturbing was the tone. Not jealous. Not hurt. Threatening. Something about that stranger had rattled Ethan, and now Clara was caught in the middle of a game she didn't understand. What did Ethan know about the man who'd held her so gently? And why did Clara suddenly feel like she'd just painted a target on her back? Daniel Crawford sat in his study, crystal tumbler untouched on the mahogany desk. The girl's hug had lasted 30 seconds. 30 seconds that cracked something open in his chest he'd thought was dead and buried. At 45, Daniel controlled a business empire worth $300 million. He owned hotels, restaurants, half of downtown Chicago's prime real estate. But he ate dinner alone every night in a mansion that echoed with emptiness. Margaret had been gone 4 years now. Cancer had stolen her slowly, painfully. Their children, grown and bitter, blamed him for working too much, for choosing business over bedtime stories. They visited twice a year. Christmas and his birthday. Obligation, not love. Daniel picked up the photo on his desk. Margaret smiled back at him, frozen in better days. "She smelled like vanilla and hope," he whispered to the empty room. The girl from today, Clara, he'd heard Ethan call her, had that same warmth. When she'd pressed against him, desperate and afraid, something inside Daniel had awakened. He'd felt needed. Not for his money or connections or power. Just needed. But Ethan's face through that cafe window had been pure venom. Daniel knew that expression well. He'd seen it in boardrooms when competitors realized they'd been outmaneuvered. Ethan Pierce. Spoiled trust fund brat who tried to muscle in on Daniel's hotel acquisitions last year. Daniel had crushed him. Professionally. Completely. And now Ethan's ex-fiancée had literally fallen into Daniel's arms. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. But as Daniel replayed Clara's whispered pleas in his mind, he wondered, was this coincidence or was someone about to pay a very dangerous price for that innocent hug? Rain pounded the pavement as Clara rushed from the subway, her broken umbrella useless against the Chicago storm. She was already 20 minutes late for her interview at the tutoring center. Another bill-paying job she desperately needed. A sleek black car pulled up beside her, window rolling down. "Get in." Clara's heart stopped. The stranger from the cafe sat behind the wheel, his dark eyes concerned. "I'm not getting in a car with someone I don't know," she said, but her voice shook from cold and fear. "My name is Daniel. You're soaked. Let me drive you wherever you're going." Lightning split the sky. Clara was shivering so hard she could barely speak. Against every instinct she got in. The car was warm, leather seats wrapping around her like a hug. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'm Clara." "I know." Daniel's voice was gentle. "Where am I taking you, Clara?" She gave him the address, studying his profile in the dim light. Strong jaw, silver threading through dark hair at his temples. Expensive suit, but his hands were calloused. Working hands. "You didn't have to help me," she said. "Sometimes we all need help." Daniel's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Especially when we're running from something." Clara's breath caught. "What makes you think I'm running?" "Because I recognize the look. I've worn it myself." They drove in comfortable silence through the storm. When Daniel stopped at the tutoring center, he turned to face her. "Clara, that man from the cafe, Ethan. He's not someone you want to provoke." Ice formed in Clara's stomach. "You know him?" "We have history. Business history. If he's contacting you because of me, you could be in danger." Clara stared at the strange, kind man who'd already saved her twice in 1 week. "What kind of danger?" Daniel's phone rang before he could answer. The caller ID made his face go pale. "Ethan Pierce." As Daniel's finger hovered over the answer button, Clara realized her simple act of hiding had just dragged her into a war she never saw coming. Daniel let the call go to voicemail. Within seconds, Clara's phone buzzed. Then again. And again. She looked at the screen and her face went white. "It's him. Ethan. Don't answer. He's calling over and over. What if?" Daniel's phone rang again. This time he answered. "Pierce." Ethan's voice filled the car through the Bluetooth, smooth as poison. "Danny boy. Long time no see." Clara watched Daniel's jaw clench. "Danny? Who called a grown man Danny? What do you want, Ethan?" "Sit. Let's talk like civilized people." Clara remained standing. "Talk." Ethan sighed dramatically. "You always were stubborn." "Fine. I want Crawford to back out of the Riverside development deal." "What?" "He's competing for a hotel contract I need. If he withdraws his bid, I make the photos disappear. Your reputation gets restored. Your job gets saved. Everyone wins." Clara's mind reeled. "This is about a business deal?" "Everything is about business, sweetheart. I thought you'd learn that by now." "I don't have any influence over Daniel's business decisions." "Don't you?" Ethan's smile was sharp as a blade. "A man like Crawford, lonely, guilty about his dead wife? A sweet girl like you could ask him for almost anything." The manipulation was breathtaking. Ethan wanted her to seduce Daniel into giving up a business deal. "And if I refuse?" Ethan pulled out his phone and showed her a new photo. Clara and Daniel in his car during the rainstorm, her face close to his as they talked. "This one shows you getting into his car. The caption will read, 'Gold Digger's First Ride.' Then there's the one of you at his house at midnight." "Midnight booty call?" "Then." "Stop." Clara's voice was barely a whisper. "I have dozens, Clara. Each one worse than the last. By the time I'm done, you'll never teach again. Your mother's nursing home will know exactly what kind of daughter is paying her bills." Clara's mother. The one pure thing in her life, and Ethan was threatening to destroy even that. "You have 24 hours, Ethan said, standing. "Get Crawford to withdraw, or I bury you so deep you'll never crawl out." As he walked away, Clara's phone buzzed. A text from the nursing home. "Clara, your mother is asking for you. Can you visit today? Nurse Patricia." Clara's heart shattered. Her mother, confused and fragile after the stroke, was the only family she had left. But as Clara made her way to the nursing home, she had no idea that Daniel was already there, sitting beside her mother's bed, and that the conversation he was about to overhear would change everything. "Tell me about Clara," Daniel said softly to the elderly woman in the hospital bed. Ruth Whitmore's eyes were cloudy with medication, but her smile was warm. "You're the young man from the photos." Daniel winced. "Mrs. Whitmore, those photos?" "Nonsense." I raised Clara. "I know love when I see it." Ruth's frail hand patted his arm. "That girl has been carrying the world on her shoulders since she was 12 years old." 12? That's when her father left. Just walked out one day. Clara found his goodbye note on the kitchen table. Ruth's voice grew sad. She's been afraid of abandonment ever since. Won't let herself need anyone. Daniel's heart clenched. But she's strong. Too strong. Works 3 jobs to pay for this place. Goes without so I can have the good medications. Ruth's eyes sharpened suddenly. She thinks I don't know, but I see the bills. Sees the sacrifice. Mrs. Whitmore? That boy Ethan never cared about her sacrifices. Only saw what she could do for him. But you? Ruth squeezed his hand with surprising strength. You see her heart. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. I might not be good for her. I have enemies. People who want to hurt me will hurt her to get to me. Life is scary, son. But loneliness is scarier. Ruth's eyes were kind but firm. Don't let fear steal what could be beautiful. Footsteps in the hallway. Daniel looked up to see Clara frozen in the doorway, her face a map of shock and confusion. Daniel? What are you doing here? Before he could answer, Ruth spoke up. He's been reading to me, dear. Dickens. Much better than those awful soap operas. Clara's eyes darted between them. How did you even know she was here? Daniel stood slowly. I may have looked into your background after the photos were published. I wanted to understand what Ethan might use against you. You investigated me? Clara's voice was ice cold. I wanted to protect you. By invading my privacy? By coming here without my permission? Ruth watched the exchange with growing alarm. Clara, dear? No, Mom. This is exactly what everyone's saying about me, isn't it? That I can't be trusted. That I'm manipulating everyone around me. Clara's voice broke. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am just a gold digger who destroys everything she touches. She turned and ran from the room. Daniel started to follow, but Ruth's voice stopped him. Let her go. But don't give up on her. The old woman's eyes were fierce. She's worth fighting for, even if she doesn't believe it herself. As Daniel stood in the empty hallway, he realized that saving Clara might require destroying the walls around his own heart first. Clara sat in her apartment, staring at Ethan's business card. 23 hours left on his ultimatum. Her laptop showed 17 missed calls from Daniel, 42 text messages, and 3 voicemails she was too afraid to listen to. The nursing home had called twice. Her mother was asking for her. Everything was falling apart and it was all her fault. She dragged Daniel into her mess, endangered his business, and now Ethan held all the cards. Her phone buzzed. A text from Meredith. Saw the nursing home pics. Really? Using your sick mother to manipulate him? New low even for you. Clara threw her phone across the room. She walked to her closet and pulled out the wedding dress, still pristine in its garment bag. $3,000 she'd saved penny by penny, working weekends and summers. All for a man who'd betrayed her with her best friend. She grabbed scissors and started cutting. The satin fell in ribbons around her feet. Beads scattered like tears across the hardwood floor. With each cut, she felt something breaking free in her chest. The fantasy of being saved. The dream of being chosen. She'd been trying to be worthy of love her entire life, and where had it gotten her? Her door buzzer rang. Once, twice, insistent. Clara, please. Let me explain. Daniel's voice through the intercom, desperate and rough. She pressed the talk button. Go home, Daniel. Back to your mansion and your perfect life. My life isn't perfect. It's empty without. Without what? Another charity case to rescue? Another broken woman to fix? Silence. Then, Clara, open this door or I'm calling the fire department to break it down. Despite everything, Clara almost smiled. You wouldn't. Try me. She buzzed him up. When she opened the door, Daniel looked terrible. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, his eyes red-rimmed with exhaustion. He saw the destroyed wedding dress on the floor and his face crumpled. Oh, Clara. It's over, she said quietly. All of it. Ethan wins. I'm calling him in the morning and agreeing to his terms. What terms? Clara told him everything. Ethan's ultimatum, the Riverside deal, the threat to destroy her completely if Daniel didn't withdraw his bid. By the time she finished, Daniel's face was stone. You're not sacrificing yourself for me. It's not sacrifice. It's survival. Daniel stepped closer, careful not to touch her. Clara, what if I told you there was another way? What other way? What if we gave Ethan exactly what he wants, and then destroyed him completely? As Clara looked into Daniel's eyes, she saw something dangerous and determined. The question was, could she trust him with her heart, or was she about to make the biggest mistake of her life? The plan was simple. Too simple. Clara would call Ethan and agree to convince Daniel to withdraw from the Riverside deal. Meanwhile, Daniel would gather evidence of Ethan's harassment and blackmail. But simple plans never survive contact with reality. Clara's phone rang at 6 a.m. An unknown number. Miss Whitmore? This is Dr. Richardson from Chicago General. Your mother was brought in an hour ago. Heart attack. The world tilted sideways. Clara threw on clothes and caught the first cab to the hospital, her hands shaking so badly she could barely dial Daniel's number. I'm on my way, he said without hesitation. Ruth Whitmore looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, tubes and wires covering her fragile body. Clara held her mother's hand and cried until there were no tears left. The damage is extensive, Dr. Richardson explained. We can operate, but what? The surgery alone costs $60,000. Your mother's insurance covers 40%. $24,000. Clara's entire yearly salary. I'll find a way, Clara whispered. That afternoon, Ethan showed up at the hospital with flowers and a smile that made Clara's skin crawl. Heard about your mother. Terrible news. He sat down uninvited. Hospital bills can be crushing. Especially for teachers. Get out. I could help. Make some calls. Get the best cardiac surgeons. Money no object. Clara's heart stopped. What's the catch? No catch. Just friendship. You call Daniel tonight. Get him to withdraw. I take care of your mother's medical bills. Everyone wins. And if I refuse? Ethan's smile turned predatory. Then I post the photos tonight. By morning you'll be famous for all the wrong reasons. Think your mother needs that stress right now. Before Clara could respond, Daniel appeared in the doorway. His face was carved from granite as he took in the scene. Pierce. I should have known you'd slither in here. Crawford. Just offering support to an old friend. Get out. Now. Actually, Clara and I were just finishing our conversation. Ethan stood smoothly. Call me tonight, Clara. You have until midnight. After he left, Daniel turned to Clara. What did he offer you? He'll pay for Mom's surgery if I convince you to withdraw from Riverside. Clara. Don't. Her voice was sharp with exhaustion. Don't tell me not to do it. Don't tell me you'll pay for it. Don't tell me everything will be okay. But I can. Stop. Clara stood up, fury and desperation warring in her chest. Everyone wants to save me. Everyone wants to be my hero. But what if I don't want to be saved? What if I'm tired of being someone's charity case? Daniel stepped back as if she'd slapped him. Is that what you think you are to me? Charity? Aren't I? The poor teacher with the sick mother? The convenient damsel in distress? Clara, I'm what? What am I to you, Daniel? Really? He looked at her for a long moment and she saw something break in his eyes. You're the first person in 4 years who made me feel alive, he said quietly. You're the woman I think about when I wake up and before I go to sleep. He stopped, shook his head. But maybe you're right. Maybe this is all just my guilt over Margaret. Maybe I am trying to save you because I couldn't save her. The words hit Clara like physical blows. Maybe we should both walk away before we destroy each other completely, Daniel continued. I'll withdraw from Riverside. You won't have to do anything. He turned to leave. Daniel, wait. But he was already gone, and Clara was alone with her dying mother and impossible choices. At midnight, as Clara stared at her phone with Ethan's number loaded, she realized she was about to lose the two most important people in her life, and there was nothing she could do to save either of them. Clara didn't call Ethan. Instead, she sat by her mother's bedside all night, holding her hand and watching the monitors beep steadily. At dawn, Ruth stirred. Clara? You look terrible. Despite everything, Clara laughed. Thanks, Mom. Where's your young man? He's not my young man. And he's gone. Ruth's grip tightened surprisingly. What did you do? I told him the truth. That maybe everyone who leaves me is right to do it. Clara Marie Whitmore. Her mother's voice carried all the authority of 30 years of motherhood. You listen to me. Clara leaned closer. Your father didn't leave because of anything you did. He left because he was a coward who couldn't handle responsibility. Ethan didn't cheat because you weren't enough. He cheated because he's selfish and cruel. Ruth's eyes were clearer than they'd been in months. And if Daniel walks away, it won't be because you're not worthy of love. It'll be because he's scared. Just like you are. Mom, I can't. I don't know how to trust anymore. Trust isn't about knowing someone won't hurt you. It's about believing they're worth the risk of being hurt. Before Clara could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check your mother's medical account. A friend. Clara's hands shook as she logged into the hospital's payment portal. Balance, $0. The surgery, the medications, the private room, everything had been paid in full. Anonymous donor. Clara knew exactly who had done this, and her heart broke all over again. That afternoon, the photos hit the internet. But they weren't the ones Ethan had threatened to release. These were different. Security footage from the hospital showing Ethan cornering Clara while her mother lay dying. Audio of him trying to blackmail her. The caption read, "Trust fund brat blackmails teacher while mother fights for life." Within hours, the story exploded. Ethan's cruel manipulation, Clara's desperate situation, the anonymous donor who'd saved Ruth's life. Public opinion shifted overnight. Clara went from gold digger to victim to hero in 24 hours. Her phone rang constantly. Job offers, interview requests, apologies from people who judged her. But the only call that mattered never came. Daniel's silence was deafening. That evening, Clara sat in the hospital cafeteria, exhausted and emotionally drained. Her mother was stable, her reputation was salvaged, and she'd never felt more alone in her life. "Excuse me. Are you Clara Whitmore?" A woman in her 30s approached, nervous but determined. She had Daniel's eyes. "I'm Victoria Crawford, Daniel's daughter." Clara's heart stopped. "Oh. Can we talk?" As Victoria sat down across from her, Clara realized she was about to learn the truth about Daniel's family, and why his children had really abandoned him. "I owe you an apology," Victoria said without preamble. Clara studied Daniel's daughter. She was beautiful in a sharp, corporate way, but her eyes held pain. "For what?" "For believing the worst about you. For assuming you were after Dad's money." Victoria's hands twisted in her lap. "The truth is, I've been so angry at him for so long that I wanted you to be a gold digger. It would prove I was right about him." "Right about what?" "That he cares more about strangers than his own family." The words hung between them like a challenge. "Victoria, your father talks about you all the time. He loves you." "Does he?" "Because when Mom was dying he was never home. Always at the office making deals, building his empire while she wasted away." Clara's heart ached. He was trying to save her. He was trying to control a situation he couldn't control. Just like he always does. Victoria's voice cracked. "Do you know what Mom used to say? Your father thinks love is a business transaction. If he throws enough money at it, he can fix it." The pieces clicked together in Clara's mind. Daniel's guilt, his isolation, his desperate need to help everyone around him. "But he did try to save her," Clara said softly. "With treatments she didn't want. Surgeries that made her suffer. He spent her last months fighting her battle instead of just being with her." Victoria wiped her eyes. "After she died, James and I were so angry. We blamed him for her pain. We cut him off completely. And now I see him paying for your mother's surgery, and I realize something." Victoria looked directly at Clara. "He's not trying to buy your love. He's trying to give you what he couldn't give Mom, a chance to actually save someone." Clara's throat tightened. "You're not his do-over, Clara. You're his hope. The difference is you're fighting for someone who might actually live." Victoria stood to leave, then turned back. "He withdrew from the Riverside deal. Did you know that?" Clara's heart stopped. "What?" "This morning. Walked away from a $50 million contract." Victoria's smile was sad. "Said some things are more important than money. But Ethan won't be bothering anyone for a long time. The FBI is investigating him for securities fraud. Turns out blackmail was just the tip of the iceberg." Victoria paused at the door. "Dad's at the house. He's been there for 3 days, staring at Mom's picture and trying to figure out how to apologize to you." "For what?" "For falling in love with you and being terrified he'll destroy you like he thinks he destroyed her." As Victoria disappeared down the corridor, Clara realized that everything she thought she knew about Daniel, and about herself, was about to change. Clara stood outside Daniel's mansion at sunset, her heart hammering against her ribs. The gardens were overgrown, newspapers piled on the front steps. Daniel's perfect facade was crumbling just like hers had. She rang the bell. No answer. She tried the door. Unlocked. "Daniel?" The house was dark, silent. Clara found him in his study, slumped in the leather chair where she'd first seen his vulnerability. 3 days of stubble shadowed his jaw, his clothes wrinkled and stale. Margaret's photo lay face down on the desk beside an empty bottle of whiskey. "You paid for my mother's surgery," Clara said quietly. Daniel didn't look up. "She's going to be fine." Full recovery, the doctors said. Why did you withdraw from Riverside? Because Ethan was right. I destroy everything I touch. Clara moved closer, her heart breaking for this proud man who'd reduced himself to ruins. Victoria came to see me. That got his attention. Daniel's head lifted, hope flickering in his bloodshot eyes. She told me about Margaret, about how you fought so hard to save her that you forgot to just love her. Daniel flinched as if Clara had struck him. She also told me that I'm not your do-over. I'm your hope. Clara, please don't try to save me. I'm too broken. Everyone's broken, Daniel. The question is whether we're broken alone or broken together. Clara knelt beside his chair, taking his hands in hers. I came here to tell you something. I love you. Daniel's breath caught. Not your money. Not your mansion. Not your ability to rescue me. Clara's voice was steady, certain. I love the way you read to my mother. I love how you held me when I was scared. I love that you tried to save Margaret even though it broke you. Clara. I love your guilt because it means you have a conscience. I love your loneliness because it means you understand mine. I love your mistakes because they make you human. Tears ran down Daniel's cheeks. But I need to know something, Clara continued. If I stay, if we try this, will you let me love you? Or will you keep trying to save me instead? Daniel looked at her for a long moment, this woman who'd stumbled into his life and turned everything upside down. I don't know how to be loved, he whispered. Then let me teach you. What if I hurt you? Then you hurt me. But what if you don't? Daniel pulled her up into his lap, holding her like she might disappear. I'm scared, Clara. So am I. What if this is just two broken people clinging to each other? Clara smiled through her tears. Then we'll figure out how to be broken together. And maybe, eventually, how to heal. Daniel kissed her then, soft and desperate and full of 4 years of loneliness. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you too, he whispered. God help us both, but I love you too. But as Clara settled into Daniel's arms, neither of them noticed the figure watching from the garden, or realized that their hardest test was still to come. 6 months later, Clara adjusted her simple white dress and took a deep breath. The small chapel was filled with faces she'd never expected to see again. Former students, colleagues who'd judged her, even some of the social media trolls who'd sent apology letters. But the woman walking down the aisle toward her wasn't Clara. It was Margaret's sister, Linda, holding the hand of Daniel's grandson, Victoria's son, who'd flown in from college to meet his grandfather properly for the first time. Because this wasn't Clara and Daniel's wedding. It was Ruth Whitmore's 70th birthday celebration, and the renewal of vows she'd never gotten to have with Clara's father before he left. Ruth sat in her wheelchair, radiant in a pale blue dress, as Pastor Williams spoke about second chances and the courage to love again. Beside her sat Harold Chin, the gentle widower she'd met during physical therapy. At 72 he was learning to love again too. Clara watched from the front row, Daniel's hand warm in hers, as her mother got the fairy tale ending Clara had stopped believing in. Dearly beloved, Pastor Williams began, we are gathered here to celebrate not just Ruth and Harold's commitment, but the truth that it's never too late to choose love over fear. Clara squeezed Daniel's hand. 6 months ago, they'd both been drowning in separate oceans of grief and loneliness. Tonight, they were planning their own quiet ceremony, not the spectacle Clara had once imagined with Ethan, but something real and chosen and earned. The community center Clara now ran was thriving. Second Chances, she'd named it, a place for people starting over to find resources, support, and hope. Daniel had provided the funding, but Clara provided the heart. They helped single mothers find job training, veterans struggling with PTSD, seniors aging alone, people whose stories echoed their own journey from isolation to connection. Victoria visited twice a month now, bringing her children to spend weekends with their grandfather. James had started calling again, tentative but genuine. The family Daniel thought he'd lost forever was slowly healing, one conversation at a time. As Ruth and Harold exchanged rings, Clara felt tears on her cheeks. Happy tears? Daniel whispered. The happiest. After the ceremony, as guests mingled in the community center Clara had built from nothing, Ethan Pierce appeared in the doorway. Clara's body tensed, but Daniel's hand stayed calm in hers. Ethan looked different. Thinner, older. The federal investigation had destroyed his trust fund empire, but more than that, it had stripped away his cruelty. He approached slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. Clara. Daniel. His voice was quiet, almost humble. I wanted to apologize. Clara studied his face, looking for the manipulation she knew so well. Instead, she found something she'd never seen before: genuine remorse. 18 months in minimum security gives you time to think, Ethan continued. About the people you've hurt. The choices you can't take back. What do you want, Ethan? Daniel's voice was calm but watchful. Nothing. I wanted you both to know that seeing what you built together, the center, your family, the good you're doing, it made me realize what I threw away when I chose cruelty over love. Ethan looked directly at Clara. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. Both of you deserve the happiness you found. He turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, I think Margaret would be proud of you, Daniel. Not for the money or the success. For choosing love when it scared you. As Ethan disappeared into the Chicago night, Clara felt a chapter of her life finally close. Daniel pulled her into his arms as music filled the community center. Ruth and Harold swayed slowly on the dance floor, surrounded by friends and family and the possibility of tomorrow. Ready for our own second chance? Daniel asked, spinning Clara gently. With you? I'm ready for all of them. As they danced, Clara caught sight of the banner hanging above the community center's main entrance. The motto she'd chosen when they first opened. Sometimes the stranger you hug to escape the past becomes the love that heals your future. Outside, Chicago glittered with a million lights and a million stories of people finding each other in the darkness. But inside the warm glow of second chances, 2 broken hearts had become whole, proving that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the bravest act of all. Trusting a stranger with your pain, and discovering they've been waiting to share it all along.